Hey everyone, I'm not really sure where to start, but I need to get this off my chest. My name is James, and I've been married to my wife, Emily, for 6 years. We met in college, and for a long time I thought she was the love of my life. Things were great in the beginning. We were that couple everyone envied. We had our ups and downs like any relationship, but I always thought we were solid. Recently, though, things started to feel off. Emily became more distant, always on her phone, and she started going out more often without me. I tried not to overthink it, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. I noticed she was getting dressed up more often, which wasn't usual for her unless we were going out together. When I asked her about it, she brushed it off, saying she just wanted to look nice for herself. I wanted to believe her, but there was this nagging doubt in my mind. Our neighbor, Chris, often flirted with her. At first, it seemed harmless. I mean, we all joke around, right? But then it started to get more blatant, and it made me uncomfortable. I talked to Emily about it, and she laughed it off, saying I was being paranoid. But when I saw Chris making moves on her at a BBQ we hosted, I decided to have a word with him. I made it clear that his behavior was disrespectful and needed to stop. He apologized, but I could tell he wasn't sincere. Things seemed to calm down after that, or so I thought. Little did I know the real trouble was just beginning. As days turned into weeks, I couldn't ignore the gnawing suspicion that something was going on between Emily and Chris. I started noticing little things that didn't add up. Emily would giggle at texts she received late at night, quickly hiding her phone when I entered the room. She also began to spend more time running errands, which always seemed to coincide with when Chris was home. One Saturday, I decided to test my hunch. Emily told me she was going to the grocery store, so I waited a few minutes before quietly slipping out of the house and heading towards Chris's place. Sure enough, as I rounded the corner, I saw Emily's car parked in his driveway. My heart sank, but I still wanted to give her the benefit of the doubt. Maybe she was just stopping by to chat. I waited for over an hour, but she didn't come out. When she finally did, she was laughing and adjusting her hair, looking way too comfortable. I confronted her when she got home, asking her why she had been at Chris's place for so long. She seemed taken aback by my question, but quickly recovered, saying she had bumped into him at the store, and they had just decided to have a quick chat over coffee. I didn't buy it, but I didn't have any solid proof. From that moment on, I couldn't shake the feeling that Emily was lying to me. My mind raced with possibilities, and I felt a growing pit of dread in my stomach. I knew I had to get to the bottom of this, but I wasn't sure how. I started paying closer attention to her actions, hoping to catch any slip-ups that could confirm my suspicions. It felt like I was living in a nightmare, constantly on edge and questioning everything she did. The more I watched, the more convinced I became that she was hiding something. I didn't want to believe it, but deep down, I knew I had to face the truth, no matter how painful it might be. One evening, I came home early from boxing practice. I usually stayed late to work off the stress, but that day, I had a nagging feeling that something was off. As I pulled into our driveway, I noticed Chris's car parked a little further down the street. My heart started to race. I quietly let myself into the house, and everything was eerily quiet. I made my way upstairs, my stomach churning with anxiety. As I approached our bedroom, I could hear muffled voices and laughter. My hands were trembling as I pushed open the door, and there they were, Emily and Chris, tangled in our sheets, completely naked. The sight hit me like a punch to the gut. They both froze, eyes wide with shock. "What the hell is going on?" I shouted, my voice trembling with rage. Chris scrambled to grab his clothes, but before he could say anything, I lunged at him. All the anger, betrayal, and frustration I'd been feeling exploded in that moment. I punched him repeatedly, my boxing training kicking in. Emily screamed, trying to pull me off him, but I was too far gone to care. By the time I stopped, Chris was a bloody mess, and Emily was sobbing hysterically. I stood there, panting, my knuckles aching and bloodied. "Get the fuck out of my house, both of you," I yelled, pointing to the door. Chris stumbled out, clutching his clothes to his chest. Emily tried to approach me, but I held up a hand to stop her. "I don't want to hear it," I said, my voice cold. "Pack your things and leave. We're done." She started to protest, but I cut her off. "I don't care what excuses you have. You betrayed me, in our own home, in our own bed. Get out." Emily packed a few things and left that same evening. As soon as she was gone, I collapsed on the bed, feeling utterly drained. The house felt empty, and the silence was deafening. I had never felt so alone. The next few days were a blur. I was numb, running on autopilot. I took a couple of days off work, unable to face anyone or anything. The house felt like a tomb, filled with memories of a life that now felt like a lie. Emily had called and texted nonstop, but I ignored her. I wasn't ready to hear her excuses. One evening, I finally decided to face her. I agreed to meet at a neutral place, a coffee shop we used to frequent. As I walked in, I saw her sitting at a corner table, looking disheveled and anxious. She looked up as I approached, her eyes red from crying. "James," she started, her voice trembling. "I'm so sorry. I never meant for this to happen." I sat down across from her, keeping my expression neutral. "Explain then," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "How did you end up in bed with Chris?" Emily took a deep breath. "It started innocently. We were just talking and he was there when you were busy. I didn't realize how far it had gone until it was too late. I know it sounds like a cliché, but I felt lonely, and he made me feel wanted." Her words hit me like a slap in the face. "So, you cheated because you were lonely?" I asked, my anger rising again. "Did you ever think to talk to me about how you were feeling?" "I tried," she insisted, "but you were always so busy with work and boxing. I felt like I didn't matter anymore." I shook my head in disbelief. "That's bullshit, Emily. You had plenty of opportunities to talk to me. Instead, you chose to sleep with our neighbor behind my back." She started crying again. "I know I messed up. I'm so sorry, James. I love you and I want to fix this." I felt a pang of sadness mixed with anger. "You should have thought about that before you betrayed me. I can't just forget what I saw. How can I ever trust you again?" Emily reached out to touch my hand, but I pulled away. "Please, James. Give me a chance to make things right. We can go to counseling, work through this." I stood up, feeling a mix of sadness and resolve. "I don't think I can do that, Emily. You broke my trust in the worst possible way. I need time to figure out what I want, but right now, I need space. Don't contact me until I'm ready." As I walked out of the coffee shop, I felt a strange sense of relief. I had faced her, heard her out, and stood my ground. But the road ahead was still uncertain, and I had a lot of healing to do. The days following that confrontation were some of the hardest I've ever experienced. I moved through my daily routines like a ghost, haunted by the memories of my life with Emily. Every corner of our home was a painful reminder of what we'd lost. I tried to keep myself busy, throwing myself into work and my boxing practice, but nothing could dull the ache in my chest. Nights were the worst. I'd lie awake for hours, replaying everything in my mind, wondering how I'd missed the signs and what I could have done differently. The betrayal cut deep, and I struggled to make sense of my emotions. I felt a toxic mix of anger, sadness, and an overwhelming sense of loss. The woman I thought I'd spend the rest of my life with had shattered my trust in the most intimate way possible. I stopped talking to most of my friends and family, not wanting to burden them with my problems. But one evening, my best friend Mark showed up at my door with a six-pack of beer and a concerned look on his face. "Hey man," he said, giving me a hug. "I heard about what happened. I'm so sorry." We sat down on the couch, and for the first time in days, I started to open up. I told him everything, how I'd found out, the confrontation, and the state of my broken heart. Mark listened patiently, nodding and offering words of comfort. "You didn't deserve this, James," he said firmly. "Emily made her choices, and now you need to focus on yourself. It's okay to feel hurt, but don't let this define you." Talking to Mark was a turning point. I realized I couldn't keep bottling up my emotions. I needed to face them head-on if I ever wanted to heal. I started seeing a therapist, someone who could help me navigate the complex feelings I was experiencing. It wasn't easy at first. Opening up to a stranger about my deepest pain felt uncomfortable and raw. But over time, it helped me start to process my emotions and understand that Emily's actions were a reflection of her own issues, not my worth as a person. During one of my therapy sessions, my therapist, Dr. Harper, asked me a question that stuck with me. "What do you want for your future, James?" It was a simple question, but it forced me to think beyond my immediate pain. I realized I'd been so focused on the betrayal that I hadn't considered what I wanted moving forward. Did I want to try and salvage my marriage? Or was it time to let go and start fresh? I thought about Emily's plea for counseling, about the life we'd built together, but every time I pictured our future, all I could see was the image of her and Chris in our bed. The trust was gone, and without trust, there was no foundation to rebuild upon. One night, after a particularly intense therapy session, I found myself standing in front of the mirror, looking at a version of myself I barely recognized. I was tired, both physically and emotionally, but there was also a flicker of determination in my eyes. I realized I needed to take control of my life, to make decisions that were best for me, not for anyone else. I made a list of things I wanted to do, things I had put off while trying to make our marriage work. I signed up for a weekend hiking trip, something I'd always loved but had stopped doing. I reconnected with old friends, rebuilding my support network. And most importantly, I focused on my own well-being, embracing the activities and hobbies that made me feel alive. Emily continued to reach out, sending messages and leaving voicemails, but I kept my distance. I needed time to heal, to find myself again before I could consider any form of reconciliation. As the weeks turned into months, the pain began to dull, replaced by a sense of resilience and self-worth. I realized that while Emily's betrayal had been devastating, it had also given me the opportunity to rediscover who I was and what I wanted from life. It was a painful journey, but one that ultimately led me to a place of strength and clarity. As I worked through my emotions and started focusing on myself, the clarity I sought began to emerge. Emily's incessant attempts to contact me didn't help, but I knew that before I could move on, I needed closure. My therapist suggested a final meeting with her, a way to end things properly and express everything I had bottled up inside. I arranged to meet Emily at a park we used to visit often. It was a neutral place, filled with memories, but also a sense of peace. When I arrived, she was already there, sitting on a bench, her face a mix of hope and anxiety. I took a deep breath and approached her, feeling a strange sense of calm. "Hi, James," she said softly, her eyes searching mine for any sign of hope. "Hi, Emily," I replied, sitting down beside her. "I've been doing a lot of thinking." She nodded, waiting for me to continue. "I know I hurt you deeply," she began, her voice trembling. "I've been seeing a therapist too, trying to understand why I did what I did. I don't expect you to forgive me, but I want you to know how truly sorry I am." I looked at her, and for the first time in a long while, I saw the woman I had fallen in love with. But I also saw the woman who had betrayed me. It was a difficult mix of emotions, but I knew what I needed to say. "Emily, I appreciate your apology, and I'm glad you're seeking help, but the trust we had is broken. I can't go back to what we had because it's gone. I've been seeing a therapist too, and I've come to realize that I need to focus on my own healing. I can't do that while trying to fix a marriage that's beyond repair." Tears filled her eyes, and she reached out to touch my hand. "James, please, can't we at least try? I'll do anything to make this right." I gently pulled my hand away, shaking my head. Trying to fix this would only prolong the pain for both of us. I need to move on. And you do too. Maybe in time, we'll find peace and can be civil with each other. But right now, I need to let go. Emily sobbed quietly, and I felt a pang of sadness. This wasn't how I had envisioned our life together ending, but it was necessary. I stood up, giving her one last look. "Take care of yourself, Emily. I hope you find what you're looking for." As I walked away, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. It wasn't an easy decision, but it was the right one. The next step was officially ending our marriage. The divorce process was surprisingly smooth. Emily didn't contest anything. She seemed resigned to the fact that our relationship was over. With the legalities behind me, I threw myself into rebuilding my life. I took that hiking trip I had planned and felt a sense of freedom I hadn't felt in years. The fresh mountain air, the physical challenge, and the solitude gave me time to reflect and heal. I realized that I was stronger than I had given myself credit for. I also reconnected with old hobbies and interests. I started painting again, something I had loved in college but had abandoned in the chaos of adult life. It was therapeutic, allowing me to express my emotions in a way words couldn't. I even joined a local art group and made new friends who shared my passion. As the months passed, I found myself smiling more, feeling lighter and more at peace. The pain of Emily's betrayal was still there, but it no longer defined me. I had learned to embrace my own worth and to build a life that made me happy. One evening, as I was tidying up my studio, my phone buzzed with a message from Mark. He was hosting a small get-together and invited me to join. I hesitated for a moment, then decided to go. It was time to reconnect with the world and the people who cared about me. At the party, I found myself laughing and enjoying the company of friends. It felt good to be surrounded by people who supported me. I even met someone new, a woman named Sarah, who shared my love for art and hiking. We hit it off, and for the first time in a long while, I felt a spark of excitement. As I stood there, talking to Sarah and feeling the warmth of the people around me, I realized how far I had come. The journey had been painful, but it had also been transformative. I had discovered a strength within myself that I didn't know existed. Meeting Sarah was like a breath of fresh air. She was kind, funny, and genuinely interested in getting to know me. We spent hours talking about our interests, our pasts, and our hopes for the future. There was an instant connection, and I felt a sense of excitement that I hadn't felt in a long time. Over the next few weeks, Sarah and I started spending more time together. We went on hikes, visited art galleries, and even took a weekend trip to the mountains. It was refreshing to be with someone who shared my passions and who made me feel valued and appreciated. One evening, after a particularly enjoyable hike, we sat by a campfire, watching the stars. Sarah turned to me, her eyes sparkling in the firelight. "James, I know you've been through a lot and I don't want to rush anything, but I really enjoy spending time with you, and I'd like to see where this goes." I smiled, feeling a warmth in my chest that I hadn't felt in a long time. "I feel the same way, Sarah. You've brought so much light into my life, and I'm grateful for that. Let's take things one step at a time and see where it leads." As our relationship blossomed, I continued to work on myself. Therapy sessions with Dr. Harper helped me navigate the lingering emotions from my past with Emily. I learned to set boundaries and to prioritize my own well-being. It wasn't an easy process, but it was necessary for my healing. Emily and I had minimal contact during this time. Occasionally, we'd run into each other around town, but our interactions were polite and brief. It was clear that both of us were trying to move on and find our own paths. I heard through mutual friends that she was still seeing her therapist and trying to understand her actions. I wished her well, hoping she would find peace too. As the months passed, my life began to take on a new rhythm. My mornings were filled with painting, my afternoons with work, and my evenings with Sarah. We explored new places, tried new activities, and created new memories together. It was a stark contrast to the darkness I had felt after discovering Emily's betrayal. One day, while hiking in a particularly beautiful area, Sarah and I reached a stunning overlook. The view was breathtaking, with rolling hills and a clear blue sky stretching out before us. We sat down on a rock, taking in the scenery. "James," Sarah said, her voice soft, "I'm so glad we met. You've been through so much, and yet you're one of the kindest, most resilient people I've ever known." I took her hand, feeling a surge of emotion. "Sarah, meeting you was like a second chance at happiness. You've helped me heal in ways I didn't think possible. Thank you for being a part of my journey." As we sat there, I realized how much I had grown since that fateful day when I discovered Emily's affair. The pain was still a part of me, but it no longer controlled me. I had learned to let go, to forgive myself, and to open my heart to new possibilities. In the months that followed, Sarah and I grew even closer. We supported each other through challenges and celebrated each other's successes. It felt like we were building something truly special, a relationship based on trust, respect, and mutual admiration. Eventually, I felt ready to take the next step. One evening, while we were having dinner at my place, I took a deep breath and looked into Sarah's eyes. "Sarah, these past months with you have been incredible. I found a happiness I never thought I'd feel again. I know it's still early, but I want you to know that I'm committed to us, to seeing where this journey takes us." She smiled, tears welling up in her eyes. "James, I feel the same way. You've brought so much joy into my life, and I'm excited about our future together." As our relationship deepened, I continued to focus on my personal growth. I joined a support group for people who had experienced infidelity, sharing my story and listening to others. It was cathartic to know I wasn't alone, and I found strength in the community of people who understood my pain. Through it all, I learned that life is unpredictable, full of both heartbreak and joy. Emily's betrayal had been a devastating chapter in my life, but it also led me to a place of self-discovery and new beginnings. I found love again with Sarah, and in doing so, I found a part of myself that had been lost. As time went on, I found myself reflecting more on my journey and what I had learned from the entire ordeal. Emily's betrayal had shaken me to my core, but it had also forced me to reevaluate my life and my priorities. I began to understand the importance of self-love and the necessity of setting boundaries in relationships. One evening, I decided to take a walk through the old neighborhood, the place where so many memories had been made and broken. The sun was setting, casting a warm golden glow over the familiar streets. I walked past the house Emily and I had shared, the place where our dreams had once felt so tangible. The house had been sold to a new family, and I could hear the sounds of children playing in the backyard. It was comforting to know that life went on, that happiness could still be found there. I stopped at a small park nearby, the same one where Emily and I had met for that final, heart-wrenching conversation. Sitting on a bench, I allowed myself to remember, to feel the sadness and the loss. But instead of being overwhelmed by these emotions, I found a strange sense of peace. I had faced my demons, and I had come out stronger on the other side. My phone buzzed with a message from Sarah. She was out of town visiting her parents, but wanted to check in. "Miss you. Hope you're having a good day," she wrote. I smiled, feeling a warmth spread through me. "Miss you too. Taking a walk down memory lane. See you soon," I replied. As I continued to sit there, I thought about Emily. Part of me still wondered how she was doing, if she had found her own path to healing. I hadn't heard much about her since our divorce, and that was probably for the best. Our lives had diverged, and we needed to walk our own paths. I hoped she had learned and grown from our experience, just as I had. Reflecting on my past with Emily, I realized how much I had changed. I was no longer the man who would ignore red flags or brush off uncomfortable feelings. I had learned to trust my instincts, to communicate openly, and to prioritize my own happiness. These lessons, hard-earned as they were, had made me a better person and a better partner to Sarah. As the sun dipped below the horizon, I stood up, feeling a sense of closure. The past was behind me, and I was ready to fully embrace the future. I headed back home, my heart lighter than it had been in a long time. Later that week, I met with Dr. Harper for what would be one of our final sessions. We talked about my journey, the progress I had made, and my hopes for the future. "You've come a long way, James," she said, smiling warmly. "It's clear you've done a lot of hard work to get to this point." "Thank you," I replied. "I couldn't have done it without your guidance. I feel like I'm finally in a good place." Dr. Harper nodded. "Remember, healing is a continuous process. There will always be challenges, but you've developed the tools to handle them. Trust yourself, and don't be afraid to lean on your support system." I left her office feeling a profound sense of accomplishment. The therapy had been instrumental in my healing, and I was grateful for the support I had received. But now it was time to rely on myself and the strong foundation I had built. That evening, Sarah returned from her trip. I picked her up from the airport, and as soon as she saw me, she ran into my arms, hugging me tightly. "I missed you so much," she whispered. "I missed you too," I replied, kissing her softly. "Let's go home." As we drove back, I realized how far I had come. The pain of Emily's betrayal was a distant memory, replaced by the joy and love I had found with Sarah. Life had thrown me a curveball, but I had managed to find my way through it, emerging stronger and more resilient. With Sarah by my side, I felt ready to face whatever the future held. Together, we would create new memories, build a life filled with love and trust, and continue to grow as individuals and as a couple. As Sarah and I continued building our life together, it became clear that our relationship was something special. We supported each other, communicated openly, and genuinely enjoyed each other's company. It was everything I had hoped for, and more. One weekend, we decided to take another trip to the mountains, revisiting the place where we first realized our connection. It was a symbolic journey for us, a way to celebrate how far we had come. We packed our bags, loaded up the car, and set off early Saturday morning, the excitement palpable between us. The drive was filled with laughter and deep conversations, a testament to the bond we had formed. When we arrived at the cabin, we were greeted by the familiar scent of pine trees and the crisp mountain air. It felt like coming home. We spent the first day hiking, exploring trails we hadn't ventured on before. The scenery was breathtaking, and the physical exertion felt invigorating. As we reached the summit of a particularly challenging trail, we sat down to rest and take in the view. The world spread out before us, vast and beautiful, a perfect metaphor for the journey we had taken together. "James," Sarah said, breaking the comfortable silence, "I've been thinking a lot about us, about our future. Being with you has been the best thing that's ever happened to me." I turned to her, my heart swelling with emotion. I feel the same way, Sarah. You've brought so much light into my life. I can't imagine my future without you. She smiled, her eyes sparkling with unshed tears. Then let's make it official. Let's build a life together, with all the adventures and love we can handle. I was stunned, but in the best possible way. We hadn't talked much about marriage or long-term plans, preferring to take things one step at a time. But in that moment, everything felt right. I reached into my backpack and pulled out a small box I had been carrying for weeks, waiting for the perfect moment. Sarah, I've been waiting for the right time to ask you this, I said, opening the box to reveal a simple but elegant ring. Will you marry me? Tears streamed down her face as she nodded, her smile radiant. Yes, James. Yes, I will. We embraced, the world around us fading away as we held each other close. It was a moment of pure joy, a culmination of our journey and the beginning of a new chapter. As we descended the mountain, hand in hand, we talked excitedly about our plans. We wanted a small, intimate wedding surrounded by our closest friends and family. We would continue exploring the world together, always making time for the things that brought us joy. Back in the cabin, we celebrated our engagement with a bottle of champagne we had brought along. We toasted to our future, to the love we had found, and to the strength we had discovered within ourselves. It was a perfect evening, filled with laughter, love, and the promise of a bright future. Over the next few months, we planned our wedding. It was a labor of love, with every detail reflecting our personalities and the journey we had taken together. We chose a beautiful outdoor venue, surrounded by nature, where we felt most at peace. Our friends and family rallied around us, offering their support and love as we prepared for our big day. The wedding day arrived, a perfect blend of sunshine and gentle breezes. As I stood at the altar, waiting for Sarah, I felt a sense of calm and happiness I had never known before. When she appeared, walking down the aisle in a simple yet stunning dress, my heart nearly burst with love. Our vows were heartfelt, a testament to the strength of our bond and the journey we had taken to find each other. There wasn't a dry eye in the audience as we promised to love, support, and cherish each other for the rest of our lives. The reception was a joyous celebration, filled with dancing, laughter, and heartfelt speeches. Mark, my best friend, gave a particularly touching toast, acknowledging the struggles I had overcome and the happiness I had found with Sarah. It was a reminder of how far I had come and how much I had to be grateful for. As the evening wound down and the guests began to leave, Sarah and I took a moment to ourselves, standing under the stars. We held each other close, reflecting on the journey that had brought us to this moment. I love you, James, Sarah whispered, her voice filled with emotion. Thank you for choosing me, for loving me, and for believing in us. I love you too, Sarah, I replied, kissing her softly. You're my rock, my love, my everything. Here's to a lifetime of adventures together. As we stood there, wrapped in each other's arms, I realized that despite the pain and heartbreak I had endured, I had found something truly beautiful. I had found love, happiness, and a future filled with endless possibilities. As Sarah and I began our life together as a married couple, I couldn't help but reflect on the journey that had brought us here. The past year had been one of the most challenging and transformative periods of my life. From the depths of betrayal and heartbreak, I had emerged stronger, wiser, and more attuned to my own needs and desires. Our marriage was off to a beautiful start. We continued to support each other, celebrating our successes and facing our challenges as a team. Sarah encouraged me to keep painting, and I encouraged her to pursue her passions. Our love for each other grew deeper with each passing day, built on a foundation of trust and mutual respect. One evening, we sat down to dinner and discussed our plans for the future. We talked about our dreams, our goals, and the kind of life we wanted to build together. It was a conversation filled with hope and excitement, a testament to the strength of our bond. James, Sarah said, taking my hand across the table, I've been thinking about something. What if we opened an art gallery together? We could combine your talent and my business skills, create a space that celebrates creativity and brings people together. The idea was intriguing, and I could see the excitement in her eyes. I love that idea, I replied, squeezing her hand. It would be amazing to create something together, to share our passion with the world. We started making plans, researching locations, and brainstorming ideas. It was a thrilling new chapter in our lives, one that allowed us to merge our talents and work towards a common goal. The process was challenging, but it brought us even closer, solidifying our partnership. In the midst of our plans, I received a surprising message from Emily. It had been over a year since our divorce, and we had had no contact. Seeing her name on my phone brought back a flood of memories, but I was curious to hear what she had to say. James, I hope you're doing well. I've been in therapy and working on myself. I wanted to reach out to apologize again for everything I put you through. I've realized how much I hurt you, and I'm deeply sorry. I hope you've found happiness, and I wish you all the best. I took a moment to reflect before responding. Thank you, Emily. I appreciate your apology. I've moved on and found happiness, and I hope you have too. Take care. It felt like a final piece of closure, a way to put the past firmly behind me. I had forgiven her, not for her sake, but for my own peace of mind. Holding on to anger and resentment only hindered my own growth and happiness. As the months passed, Sarah and I opened our art gallery. It quickly became a vibrant community hub, attracting artists and art lovers from all walks of life. We hosted exhibitions, workshops, and events, fostering a sense of creativity and connection. It was everything we had dreamed of, and more. One evening, after a successful gallery opening, we sat on the patio, watching the sunset. Sarah rested her head on my shoulder, and I felt a deep sense of contentment. We've come a long way, I said, wrapping my arm around her. I'm so grateful for everything we've built together. Me too, Sarah replied, smiling. I couldn't have asked for a better partner in life and love. Looking back, I realized that Emily's betrayal, as painful as it had been, had led me to a place of profound growth and self-discovery. It had forced me to confront my own vulnerabilities and to rebuild my life from the ground up. And in the process, I had found a love that was genuine and enduring. To anyone who might be going through a similar experience, my advice is this. Don't let the pain define you. Take the time to heal, to understand your worth, and to rebuild your life on your own terms. Surround yourself with people who uplift and support you, and don't be afraid to seek help when you need it. Most importantly, never lose sight of the fact that you deserve happiness and love. Life is unpredictable, full of twists and turns, but it's also filled with endless possibilities. Embrace the journey, learn from the hardships, and cherish the moments of joy. Because in the end, it's those moments that define our lives and shape our future. And with Sarah by my side, I knew that our future was bright, filled with love, creativity, and the promise of many more adventures to come. That's it, and thank you for your attention. Subscribe to the channel and share your impressions in the comments.